Hello and welcome to the monster taming premiere with our good friend Mr. Gym Leader Ed.
What's going on, man?
And also from Paratope, we have myself, Justin, and Tejas, the lead developers and co-founders at Paratope. Tejas, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Justin. Thank you for asking.
Let's get right down to the meat and bones. Question for you, Ed, and also, I guess, congratulations on reaching 25,000 subscribers. It's a huge milestone.
Thank you.
Uh, it seems like you've gotten a great rhythm of content down. What new things would you like to do more of, or are you finding that this is the rhythm that you're going to keep on the road to 100K?
Yeah, so I've definitely found my sort of pacing, being able to because I'm very news oriented, so I found a good pacing, kind of like, all right, and you know, there's some big news going on. I'm gonna cover it, and then I'm gonna swing over to some older stuff and to some smaller games and stuff like that. Honestly, I think I'm just gonna continue to provide that sort of I guess adequate coverage for the genre. During slower periods, I would like to cover a little more sort of older, more classic monster taming games, because it's definitely something that is lacking a little bit on my channel because there's so much news. If I have time, if it does get slower this year, that is, because 2022 is a little crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this year we'll get to it later, but I think this year is kind of the awning or the beginning of the real public appeal to the alternative mon genre,
Yeah,
especially with, I think Legends Arceus points us in that direction, but we've got a whole topic for that. So
yeah.
basically you're doing all the right things with YouTube, so I'm really excited to see where your channel goes, because I remember seeing your videos when you had, like, I don't know, 500 subscribers, and it was just Pokemon and Koromon and maybe a little bit of Kindred Fates or some other games like Temtem, and now to see the whole thing blossom has been really exciting. So we're really looking forward to growing our channels together, especially with SC having its little place in the monster taming community.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Thanks, man.
And have
So
you always been doing daily content drops?
Yeah, pretty much. Since I hit 1,000 subscribers, I said, you know what, like, I think I can actually keep growing this thing. I'm gonna upload every single day.
well, that is really the grind that a lot of YouTubers say brings them to the next level, is just doing it every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's not always easy, but it's like you have to make a lot of sacrifice. Like if you upload every single day, like me, I work night shifts. Actually, as the time of us recording this, I worked a night shift last night. So I work night
Oh
shift.
my god.
I get home at so I work from about 8 until 5 or 8 until 6 depending on my schedule. I
Jeez.
get home at about 6:30 or 7:30, again depending on the schedule, and then I have about until 8 or 9 to make a video. So I got everything like scripted at work on my break. Then I got about an hour and a half to 2 hours to make a video, and then that's kind of so I have to kind of keep it. I have to keep myself a little. I guess you could say anchored, right? So I can't be coming out with like 20-minute video essays every day. So I think I found a good sort of like um place where my videos are mostly like about 5 to 10 minutes long.
Yeah, and we know watch time is the big golden egg for YouTube. So
Yeah.
um, awesome stuff. What was the first thing that you saw that put Skyclimbers on your radar? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I guess immediately, and this is probably the most obvious, is the visuals are definitely like when I saw this, I was like, is this an indie game? Like, what's going on
Yeah,
here? Um, I do like the choice elements as well, because I'm someone like I've personally actually never really played many survival games or city building games, anything like that, settlement
yeah,
games, anything like that. So it's definitely nice that the game doesn't force you into a specific avenue. You can kind of do what you want as you wish, because that way it's I think it's a good way to get eased into those other aspects that I've never done before. Whereas if you're just gonna go into like a pure city building game, you might kind of get overwhelmed. At least I would. I have ADHD, so like, sitting and
yeah,
building stuff, I'm just like, put it all on the map. Let's go.
yeah. No, I totally get that. And before we move on from this point, was there a specific piece of media that caught you? I think it was the first thing that you covered. Was it the biomes preview from last year? I don't remember.
Yeah, I saw the biomes. There was a Halloween teaser. There was
Halloween. Okay.
there was that one. Yeah, there was a few. I guess I caught you guys really early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you caught the first. That was the first thing we had done when we rebuilt the game entirely
Hmm.
from being a VR project, and the first
Yes.
thing that we showed off was that biomes teaser. It was actually in the first of last year, and I
Oh,
remember
okay.
because I remember around the same time one of your first videos came out on SC, and you were talking about it. And I remember I just kept listening to it over and over again because part of it is like reaffirmation where you want to hear good things about
Yeah.
what you're doing, but another part of it was like, oh my god, actually someone cares who's a good content creator that this just could be a long-term relationship. Here we are a
Yeah.
year later, we're still frequently bouncing off of each other
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
for stuff. So that's always cool. But yeah, let's get into some of the other topics now that we've done our introductions. For the gaming industry, the Mon genre has never really had a specific place to call home among other Titan genres like the FPS, even the real-time strategy game, the survival game. So, do you think that we ever have a real shot at the creature collector or the monster tamer having that much of a foothold in the gaming industry, such that there are multiple IPs, and it's not just this continuation of, oh well, this game is copying Pokemon, but it does
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah.
It actually becomes its own genre.
Yeah. So definitely, I have been. I don't. When it comes to like popularity, I don't know that we'll ever become as popular as like FPS or anything like that. But because I do find Pokemon's an RPG, but I do find a lot of Pokemon fans, at least from what I've seen in my personal life and just in my YouTube comments, stuff like that. A lot of them don't actually play any other RPGs but Pokemon. So for example, like you might have a Pokemon fan, but they're not going to go play Final Fantasy or
Right.
anything like that. So I don't know necessarily if a lot of Pokemon fans may translate to other monster taming games that aren't Pokemon like, but we are seeing more and more games that are maybe inspired by, let's say, Shin Megami Tensei, and then we're starting to get more wild card games that are kind of their own thing, like Skyclimbers, like Kindred Fates. We haven't seen something with like real time combat like that before. Even we have games that are. We have a game called Patch Quest. It's like this game where you ride the monsters and you can like it's basically a bullet hell. And so we're starting to get a lot of more nuance to the monster taming genre. I do think for now Pokemon like games are going to kind of be the ones that are more noticed. But I think as we move on, people will sort of stray away from that whole knockoff angle and start to see these games like each game has its own thing. And I think that's another thing too. It's really important for each game to have its own unique spin. So like Koromon has its like potential system. Temtem has its MMO elements. Nexamon has like its story and the way the game sort of progresses. Whereas you will have some monster taming games that don't really have a specific niche within the niche, and I think that could cause them to sort of blend together, which isn't necessarily good.
Yeah, I guess what it boils down to is that people associate the genre and the desire to catch the Mons with their association with them. So people love their Pikachu, they love their
Yeah,
Charizard, they love their Akaneko, they love their Akani, they love their so they have their specific names that they associate. So the question then becomes, I guess, how far do we go until there's only so many names and ideas and visual variations of animals that I guess it does become a little bit of an intellectual property and copyright
yeah,
uh, conundrum, because at the same time you have people constantly drawing connections. Oh, this is too similar to Pokemon. This is
yeah,
too similar to that. Whereas like in FPS, you've got name the top 10 FPS games that are modern. They all have an M16 and
yeah,
they have an AR-15 and an AK-47, and there's no copyright claim.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like it's much harder to have 10 top selling monster taming games because they have to have 10 completely unique franchises as well.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, but I was interested to hear what you thought. I think it's I have seen the tag. I've never seen it before this year, but in the last year I've seen the creature collector tag pop up on
Yeah.
Steam. So I think that there is genuine platform interest from Steam to actually curate this little genre. So it has a
Yeah.
it has a shot.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
think
genre that's been dominated by Nintendo for so long, right? And
yeah.
then their AAA developers haven't really touched that space either when it comes to Xbox or PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely in Steam's interest or the PC market in general to kind of foster that community, which seems to be dominated now by indies.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it totally is. And the thing is too, like I think a lot of people don't really know what monster taming is, and I was guilty of
Yeah.
this like 2 years ago. Like okay, so for example, a lot of people when they think about Shin Megami Tensei, they don't think about monster taming or monster catching. They just think, "Oh, it's a JRPG." But really, all the demons in the game, sure you don't catch them in a ball, but you can recruit them all to your team. You
Mm.
can customize their stats. And it's funny because Shin Megami Tensei is a branch from DDS Megami Tensei, which predates Pokemon.
Oh
So like,
wow.
yeah, so a lot of like the original Megami Tensei game, it was Japan exclusive, but it came out in like I believe 1987. And then Dragon Quest V, which had its own monster taming mechanic, which heavily inspired Pokemon, came out in 1990. And it's hilarious because Pokemon got so popular that people don't realize that these games actually predate them. So, like, I watched some YouTuber make like a top 10 Pokemon ripoff video from years ago.
Mm.
And two of the games he included were Shin Megami Tensei and Dragon Quest Monsters. And while the original SMT game came out after Pokemon, SMTs derived from Megami Tensei from before Pokemon, and then Dragon Quest Monsters came out after Pokemon, but Dragon Quest Monsters was derived from Dragon Quest V's mechanics that Pokemon took a lot of ideas from. So it's
Yeah.
like
It's
there's a lot of I guess there's like a lack of research when it comes to stuff like that, and then monster taming games also don't necessarily we call it a genre, but I think it's more of like an umbrella because you have like let's say like collecting games where you go around catching as many things as you can. You have games that are more focused on combat, like Pokemon Stadium. Like that's still a monster taming game, but you're not really catching anything.
Sure.
And then
right.
you have games,
It's a weird
yeah,
term.
yeah, and then you have like games that are like you have monster taming roguelikes, monster taming bullet hells, monster taming open world games that are action RPGs. You got the turn-based RPGs. So it's more like I guess I call it a genre, but I guess it's more like an umbrella term if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. And ultimately, that's I think what is difficult to wrap this up because the point of any genre or subcategory, especially with a ecosystem as fragmented and large as gaming, is to corral similar interests.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what's difficult about the word itself is that, like you said, not in some of these games or IP in general, it's not even about the taming, but there is this mon aspect. So
Yeah.
it's difficult sometimes because as we try often to hone in on our marketing audience. You
Yeah.
wonder like, well, what hashtag? There isn't really a highly used monster taming or mon hashtag. You
Yeah.
have to kind of skimp around other words or terms, and it's just interesting to see. I think that with this year being the big year, we're calling it kind of the year the first year of mon taming as an actual genre opened up largely by my next question, which is the Pokemon Company, the whole idea of Legends Arceus. And Tejas, maybe you want to dive into that for a second, see what Ed thinks about it.
Sure. Uh, with the Pokemon Company moving towards more dynamic games in the series, do you think we will see a full-scale real-time Pokemon game anytime soon?
So for me, I'm not too sure, and the thing is it's like it depends who's developing it. So if Game Freak's developing it, I'm not entirely sure that they're gonna have the time or the because you know how Pokemon time constraints are. They're like, yeah, make a game every 5 seconds, and do what
Right,
you got to
right.
do. But so I don't know if Game Freak's gonna want to move away from their turn-based system, but on the other hand, I could see some type of spin-off game that still functions within the same vein as like a main series game, but it's real time with like, oh, let's say an open world. I could see something like that existing, maybe an expansion to the Legends formula. The thing is it's like I think Pokemon is actually holding itself back in a lot of aspects. They could literally have a second company make like main series games, but for like a T rating or something, and have them like come out every 4 or 5 years, and they would sell like hotcakes, like full expansive like open world adventures where even if it did have turn based combat, they like I feel like they're missing out. Like, yeah, they have the regular main series ones that everybody's gonna buy anyway. But if they came out with like real, like big story driven RPGs, I think Legends Arceus is kind of like an example of that because most people that have actually played it are saying that they're enjoying it. I think some people are overhyping it, but I think it's a good game. Like I've been playing it quite a bit, and I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing, but I definitely think it's good. And it goes to show like fans are hungry for more they're hungry for something different. So I do think a real-time Pokemon game could be interesting. I don't know if they'd use AI combat or let you control the Pokemon, but either way, I think it would be interesting. I don't know if it's going to happen, but
From a design perspective, now that we've been working on Skyclimbers for quite a bit, there are certainly some advantages to turn-based combat, and
yeah,
I can see why Pokemon would want to keep that around.
yeah,
But I think it's interesting that they've kind of shied away from ever introducing a big title on their consoles. They've always deferred to the handhelds for Pokemon.
yes,
Besides, like the XD series and a handful of other games, it's been a running sort of a gag or a desire in the community that people want a Skyrim-esque Pokemon game, but
yeah.
that's never really been realized.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's kind of crazy because for me, like at least Sword and Shield and BDSP, they didn't feel like Switch games. They felt, or same with Let's Go. They felt like DS games or
DS
3DS
games.
games,
Yep.
upscaled 3DS games. And like to me, Legends, I like I know it's not the most visually appealing. Like I'm not I can appreciate good graphics, but I'm not like I won't write off a game because of that. But like that feels like the first Switch Pokemon game. Like to me, this is the first Pokemon game on Switch. There's a lot that can be improved, but it actually feels like a Switch game.
yeah,
100%. Yeah, and that's what I think also is interesting is that it's the adoption of Nintendo internally and Pokemon themselves to say, well, you know what, we're gonna have our mainline bread and butter, but we're also gonna have this offshoot Legends, and that opens up a lot of opportunity for creative freedom.
Yeah,
And ultimately, there is no standard for the the real time combat, or now they're getting closer to it with the real time taming and stuff. So
yeah,
it really is a building of a standard, and whether it's Skyclimbers or the next Legends game, or Kindred Fates, or now we've got Pal World. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of on the table in terms of what can be set as the standard, because as of right now, all that we have is what we've known, and then we have things in the middle like Far Cry Primal, or you have
yeah,
Ark Survival, where you can do that real time taming and quote combat,
yeah,
but it's really it's not much different than two rocks hitting each other. It's not like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's no move sets, there's no leveling. So it's an exciting time, I think, to be developing in this subcategory of games, and hopefully we can bring something to the table that is unique. And that's, I think, our next segment here on the actual game showcase. But before that, I do want to just ask specifically about platforms, because we talked about this being the first kind of Switch, the true Switch game,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense. What other platforms are you playing on these days, and which platforms do you think that the Mon genre can have its biggest impact?
Yeah, so I personally use Steam the most just because it's easier for my YouTube stuff, like just to record and stuff like that. But
Of course.
I also do feel like there's a lot more indies on Steam that maybe don't yet have the budget to port to consoles, or they're like in early access or something. Like there are some really good monster taming games that are just Steam only right now. Abomination's one, it's a roguelike, a lot of fun. There's also New Monsters, which is in early access, and it's kind of more like an old school Pokemon more attuned to like Pokemon Red and Blue. There and so I think with Steam, it gives I guess it's so far like it gives a lower bar to entry too. So I haven't seen any like bad monster taming games pop up really, but there is also going to be that aspect. But I think for the Switch, sorry, for the Steam and the Steam Deck, I think they're pretty good for when it comes to like being able to get as many games as possible. You also have games that are like out, but they're planning to come to consoles. So like Serial Ultimate's an example. It's fully out, but the consoles haven't come out yet. So you can also get games earlier on Steam. But I will say for full games, I think Switch is like the biggest is the biggest monster taming consoles because you have your like SMT, you have your Monster Hunter Stories, you have your
Yeah.
Pokemon, Koromon, Kindred Fates. Those are games that are on Steam, but they're also only coming out to Switch. They're not coming out to PlayStation and Xbox. And I've done a bunch of videos where it's like going over different, like, these are some monster taming roguelikes. These are some monster taming games for Switch. These are for PlayStation, this and that. And I have a much easier time finding games for Switch than I do for any other console. So I think, I honestly think the Switch, like, for consoles is probably going to be the most successful when it comes to monster taming.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in one way it's an advantage because you know that the entire Switch ecosystem is built around people who love Pokemon, Mario, and
Exactly. Yeah.
Zelda.
Yeah.
So you're guaranteed that interest group. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you're competing with Big Daddy. You're
Yeah.
competing with
Exactly.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
So, and first of all, I mean, if you have questionable intellectual property ideas or infringement,
Yeah.
Nintendo's not going to let you anywhere near them. So
Yeah.
it's like that cuts out a whole portion of these games because a lot of them are a
Yeah.
little bit too close, so they're not going to make it to the Switch. They just won't hear back from that application process.
Mm.
And then the other group is maybe not as compelling, and they just won't stand out. So that's why I think also we forgot about mobile, but Steam and mobile
Oh yeah, I forgot to
are
mention mobile.
well because think about it. I mean, isn't Coromon and Nexomon aren't they on mobile?
Yeah,
Is it,
yeah. So Koromon's being developed first. So it's kind of interesting. Okay, so Koromon's being developed as a Switch and PC game first, and then it's going to be adapted to mobile.
okay.
Nexomon 1 was a mobile game that was
Yes.
adapted to consoles, but then Nexomon 2 was a Steam and console game that was adapted to mobile.
Oh, that's funny. But
Yeah,
those because it's difficult. I mean, I think that because we have so many other features and a lot of effort has gone into making our game very cinematic and double A or whatever you would
yeah,
call it. I think that's why we always knew we wanted to go to all of the major consoles and
yeah,
even cloud because it has that kind of appeal, but commercial appeal. But for games that are more in that distinct indie category, it seems like Steam, mobile, and then if you can make it to the Switch would probably be the best way to get that target audience for this mon genre.
yeah. PC and then mobile and Switch are both portable, so I think that's also a big part of it. Like,
Yeah,
let's say you're a Pokemon fan, right? And like a lot of like I think a big part of the genre growing, like at least with the Pokemon likes, like
right.
Nexomon, Coromon, Temtem, etc. A big part of those, like the genre growing, was because people haven't been happy with Pokemon as of late. Now, Pandora's box is open. I made a whole video talking about this. Like, it doesn't matter if Pokemon comes out with a game that just is so amazing that like it just makes everybody happy. The Pokemon will never be able to, and it's not their fault for this, but they'll never be able to cover every single niche. So they're not gonna like we're not gonna see a Pokemon game with like fusions, for example,
Right.
right? Well, we have monster taming games with fusion.
Yeah.
We have this one monster taming game that's cool. It's like it's very early development, but it's a Zelda like, and the monsters can turn into weapons, for example. Like Pokemon's not going to do that.
Right.
There's so many different things that can exist that Pokemon can't do, and I think now that a lot of people know that monster taming is a thing, um, like I don't think Pokemon's gonna have the same level of stranglehold that it used to on the genre. Like before, like Pokemon was so popular that nobody even knew these games existed. Now we're just dealing with like some vitriol from like some really hardcore Pokemon fans that are like feel threatened by monster taming. But I always try to tell people like it's not an anti-Pokemon movement. Like, sure, it's grown because people aren't as happy with Pokemon, but there's tons of people who enjoyed the last two Pokemon games that also play monster taming games as well.
Yes. And at the end of the day, a happy consumer will always be willing to indulge in similar products. So if
Yeah,
someone enjoyed Arceus and they've completed it, it's not like they're now going to boycott Skyclimbers because it's too, it also has monster taming. If
Exactly.
and if anything, it might actually make them more excited to play Skyclimbers because now they're like, oh well, now we can see this kind of open world
Yeah.
gameplay loop, but with more impressive graphics and other mechanics. So I think overall there's a lot of good signs, and it will be interesting to see because we have such a robust industry. I mean, the gaming industry has gone through an amazing couple of years, and
Yeah.
this is potentially a whole new sub-market within these platforms. So very cool stuff. I think we should dive into the gameplay showcase since this is the first time we're really showing off the monster taming in full form. We have shown deployment and mounting and stuff like that. So just to give a brief synopsis for those who are new or don't know the rundown on how we're tackling monster taming, essentially we are allowing the player to use the Sentius Gauntlet, which is this piece of technology they wear on their arm, to capture up to and hold up to 3 Sentius, which are the monsters in the game, in their party at a time, and then also use that same piece of technology in the game to shoot balls of energy to capture Sentius and also to deploy them. So we've taken kind of the idea, and I see it when I'm playing this because I did download the Arceus game to try it out, and I'm seeing this. It becomes almost, I think you said in one of your videos, it becomes almost kind of like this third-person shooter style thing where you're shooting the balls.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for the boss battle. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you're used to just throwing one when
Yeah.
you're playing the turn-based game, but now it's real time. It feels almost like you're playing a first-person shooter. So there are a lot of complications that can come from the mix of mechanics. You have the AI in real time, you
Yeah.
have the player's combat, and then you have the actual taming event and and all the stuff that happens in between that. So I was wondering if there's anything that you're curious about before you've seen it specifically, or just in general that you think we did well or poorly when we made these specific design decisions.
Well, so I know like your monsters, if I'm not mistaken, they act sort of like companions. They have like their different moves, but and they can fight alongside the player. I actually like that. Like one thing I would have actually liked in Legends, and I know this kind of goes against what Pokemon is, but I thought it would have been cool if you could have had like a sword or something and fight with your Pokemon.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that is one thing that I definitely think is really cool.
Well, yeah, we do have that, and the where the complication draws then is balancing the player's input versus the mon's input,
Yeah.
and having that be compelling. But overall, it boils down to a mix of the actual real time combat between the two mons, and then also the players' input with their combat, and then their
Yeah.
taming features. So it'll be exciting to show everyone off shortly. But before we get into it, I would also like to dig into. Yeah, I just ran out of stuff to say, honestly. Sorry, that tangent just didn't go well.
It's not a big deal, but we were talking about like Legends in real time, and like I actually like turn-based combat and real-time combat. So like I don't really care if Pokemon ends up going either
Yeah.
way. But yeah, I forgot to mention that, but that's not a big deal.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
there are some real advantages to having it's not just from just a technological or development perspective, but from a design perspective, a lot more straightforward in terms of the interactions you're engaging in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just real
I like it
time.
for comp personally. I've always liked the competitive scene behind Pokemon, so that's the only reason like I like the turn based. To be honest,
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
we got
but
their
yeah,
agency in real time and allowing the player to kind of fight alongside with their mon, which there was a definite lack of in the existing mon games.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's something that actually was I found really exciting about Skyclimbers is that because I think a lot of people like so you have a lot of games that are like you get like one companion, right? So you wouldn't
Yeah.
really like I mean you could stretch it and say it's like a monster taming mechanic, but like okay, Breath of the Wild, you have Wolf Link, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So like that's an example of like a companion, but like I always thought like, it'd be so cool if you had like all these different companions you can like have and then fight with them. So
Yeah, that's, I mean, ultimately what it boils down to that we have is a gameplay loop similar to an RPG like Botwa or, Skyrim.
yeah,
But then we've thrown into the mix somewhere in the middle between the complexity and the control of a mainline Mon game, and then that kind of automated because
yeah,
you're picking the moves that they have based on what level they are and
yeah,
what they've unlocked, but they're on their auto loop. So like
yeah, exactly, yeah,
for example, like they're just gonna switch. They're switching between melee and ranged on their
yeah,
own. They're switching between targets on their own, and I think that's where the real polish is going to come in because what you're seeing now is obviously still pre-alpha, late pre-alpha. We're
yeah,
almost
yeah.
into alpha, but I think down the road it'll be really cool to see where we can take it and actually have multiple stage battles, kind of like you're seeing in Arceus with that with those boss fights where you have different stages to the battle where you're whittling
Yeah.
it down, then you're throwing the projectiles at it, then it's moving to a specific type of move set, and the way that your actual team balances into this because you can have two out at a time. You can have one out that's one Sentius that's fighting and one that's on your shoulder, so a small one.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Okay.
So
100%.
yes, so the smaller Sentius is support. So all the starters are support only. When as of now, the way we've designed it is that all starters are support only until
Oh, okay.
the second evolution.
Oh, okay, okay.
So in the first evolution, they're either on your shoulder or they're on the ground, just following you around. But they're doing is they're cycling through different supports, so upping your defense, upping your attack,
Oh, okay.
replenishing your health. So then while they're doing that, you can have your RPG move set based on your
Yeah.
class because you have one of the
Yeah.
5 classes. So in this case, we're going to show off the mage. So the mage is shooting fireballs. The support is doing the support moves, and then you also have your active, which is out and actually attacking. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then in addition to that, you can also do something like free building. I mean, if you really want to, you can switch into the building system and start building defenses, and then those can get blown up. So
Yeah.
I mean, our goal with all the systems in the game is that they're systemic and that they complement and function alongside previously developed systems and mechanics. So
Yeah.
it's going to be, I mean, there will also be inevitably more things to polish,
Yeah.
but I think that we're providing a nice little sandbox, and what people come up with and the kind of situations people get into are probably going to be pretty entertaining.
Oh yeah.
So I want to thank you again, Ed, for joining us. I think we're going to dive into that juicy gameplay very soon. So thank you again, and we can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this gameplay.
All right, cool. Let's get to it.